At one point, I had fractured my ankle, but you can't give in to that. Like, that ordinary person before would have been like in the hospital and having breakfast brought to me. But as a caregiver, I was like, yeah, that happened and I got to keep going because I'm just going to have to lean on my other leg because he needs me to do this. So I think physically the demands on caregivers, people can kind of assume or they can imagine. But the emotional and mental demands that are put on caregivers, I don't think there's any way for people to understand that unless you've walked in those shoes. I remember on the journey, people would say, I don't know how you do what you do, Allison. You're so strong, you know, Jeff is so strong or whatever. Look, people, we didn't want to be strong. I wasn't strong. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like doing PTO parties the week before. Let's put this in perspective, right? We are just, that's what I say to people. Caregivers are just ordinary people, and we're asked to do extraordinary things at the drop of a hat. For every single thing that your loved one can no longer do is one more thing that you're taking on to what you're doing for them as well. And I don't mean that to sound like that's a burden, but it's a burden. You know, it's an honor and a burden at the same time. Obviously, the person would like to do all of those things for themselves, and I wouldn't have wanted anybody else to do them for Jeff. But every loss is a gain for somebody else, and that somebody else is generally the caregiver. And I wish that people could put that in perspective. But unless you've lived in the shoes of that 24/7 caregiving role, you know, you don't realize that ordinary person that you used to be doesn't exist anymore. And you have to figure it out. And then when it's over, you don't necessarily know how to define yourself anymore. I know people talk about, oh, I used to be a caregiver. And I'm thinking, but now you always are. It's not a used to be kind of thing. You already know what you're capable of. You are Superwoman. You know, like, you can do this. You've got this. And it just changes your perspective a little bit. And those ordinary people turn into superheroes overnight.